Hey everyone, this is Hurricane Hal from the beach in beautiful Galveston, Texas to give you your Wednesday morning tropical weather update. We've been watching this tropical wave move from east of the Caribbean into the Leeward Islands in the eastern Caribbean. It will likely form into Tropical Storm Isaias today. If it does, it'll be the earliest I storm ever to form on record. Today's July 29th. The previous record was when Tropical Storm Irene formed on August 7th, 2005. We're 9 days earlier than that. We've never had an ice storm in July before, so the record-breaking, blistering pace of the 2020 Atlantic hurricane season will likely continue. Let's talk about the development of this system. Tropical systems like to have a central cluster of thunderstorms. With this tropical wave, we've actually had two competing areas of thunderstorms. And until that really centralizes and forms kind of a more of a core, it hasn't been able to get a low-level circulation, a closed circulation, and really develop. However, it looks like the convection, these thunderstorms are really generating on the satellite loops today, and we do expect that it'll form a closed low and become a tropical storm, which would be a named storm. Right now, the maximum sustained winds are at 45 miles an hour. The winds are strong enough, it just doesn't have a closed low or really a closed circulation, but we think that will happen. The wave has been moving very fast. It's been moving to the west-northwest at 23 miles an hour. A more average speed would be maybe around 12 to 15 miles an hour in that part of the world, but this has been moving fast, and that has hindered its development. Until we really get a center of circulation, it's hard to predict intensity, it's hard to predict track, and that's one reason that the models are more uncertain than usual with this system. Creighton emailed me and he had a question, is it possible that this storm stays south, really south of the Caribbean islands, and maybe moves into the Gulf? These competing areas, these competing growing areas of thunderstorms, there was one to the northeast, one to the southwest. The area to the southwest has performed better than expected on the model runs, and it looks to me like this might be the main area where the circulation develops. So the center of circulation looks a little farther south and west than previously thought. And also these tropical systems, they really want to move from south to north. They really want to move energy and temperature from the equator to the poles, but these blocking areas of high pressure really keep them from doing that and steer them to the west. The high pressure, or the ridge, we've heard of the Bermuda High over the central Atlantic, it's developed a little stronger than previously forecast as well. So because the circulation has developed a little more to the south and west, and because this ridge or this high pressure is building in a little stronger, the track from the National Hurricane Center has shifted a little bit to the south today. So what does this mean? It looks like Tropical Storm Isaias will form in the eastern Caribbean. Right now there are tropical storm warnings for the Leeward Islands, the Virgin Islands, Puerto Rico, and Hispaniola, which is the Dominican Republic and Haiti. It does look like the storm will form and continue tracking to the west-northwest. Today we're going to see impacts coming into Puerto Rico. So my friend Bob in Hollywood, Florida asked, what about the rain? What about the impacts for Puerto Rico? It does look like impacts will start with tropical storm force winds in Puerto Rico this afternoon, heavy bands of rain coming into Puerto Rico this afternoon and this evening. It does appear like the best track right now puts the eye to the south and west, just offshore of Puerto Rico. Some uncertainty with it, but that's the best track guidance we can produce. Isabel asked me, how far will the eye be from Puerto Rico? I think it'll be, maybe just offshore, maybe 100, 150 miles offshore. Hard to say right now, but regardless of the actual position of the eye, the wind and rain impacts are really offset to the north of this system. So Puerto Rico is going to get tropical storm force winds. Not strong enough winds to produce structural damage, but tropical storm force winds are strong enough to bring down trees and cause extensive power outages. The big story on Puerto Rico, though, will be the rain. 3 to 6 inches of rain. Where we have mountains in these Caribbean islands like Puerto Rico and Hispaniola, we actually enhance the rainfall because we get more lift. So I think some isolated areas of Puerto Rico could see as much as 10 inches of rain. With the terrain there, that will produce a lot of runoff, flash flooding, and mudslides. So that, I think, will be the biggest impact of this in Puerto Rico, will be flash flooding from heavy rain and mudslides. Then we're tracking this storm. It looks like the next 36 hours, the conditions are very favorable for development. Warm sea surface temperatures over 84 degrees Fahrenheit and relatively low wind shear. And with the forward motion slowing down, it should really start to get its act together. The Hurricane Center thinks best guess 60 miles an hour wind, maximum sustained winds when it passes Puerto Rico. Then it has interaction with Hispaniola, which is Dominican Republic and Haiti. And how this tracks and how this interacts with the land is really going to determine the future of this system. Again, the environment's favorable if it can stay over warm water. Does the core of the storm move over the island of Hispaniola, where mountains are over 10,000 feet high? If the core moves right over the center, it's going to really rip this thing apart and really tear it apart and really make it more disorganized and much more weak. But if it can track a little bit to the north or the south, we know at least the fringe of the storm will impact Hispaniola, but if the core of it can stay really near the water or over water, it'll retain some strength. This becomes important because moving into Friday, once it moves past Hispaniola and gets closer to Cuba, the southern Bahamas, and eventually towards the US, it looks like the wind shear is going to pick up, these crosswinds. Getting into Friday, the conditions are less favorable for development. If it gets torn apart in Hispaniola and gets into eastern Cuba and the southern Bahamas, and it's a very weak tropical storm, it'll probably just dissipate from the wind shear. But if it can get past Hispaniola and be a stronger tropical storm, 60, 70 mile an hour winds, and a little better developed, it can fight off some of that wind shear and probably survive into South Florida. The best guess from the Hurricane Center is putting this as a moderate to even stronger tropical storm in South Florida this weekend, putting it around South Florida, say Saturday night, with 65 mile an hour winds. Again, it's hard to really just focus on any one specific track or any one specific intensity. There's a lot of uncertainty until we get the center of circulation and really see where that forms. It's hard to know really about the track, where this thing might go, but in general to the west-northwest. Next 36 hours, favorable for development, but we're going to watch the land interaction with Puerto Rico and Hispaniola. After that, conditions become less favorable for development and it might weaken, but it's really, does it survive the land masses? Isaias has a lot of obstacles in its way, and we're just going to have to watch and see. If you want to see what's going on with this, watch the satellite loops today, see where that convection really blows up and where those centralized thunderstorms really organize. That'll give us a good idea about the center of circulation and a better idea with the potential track. Again, even if it doesn't go over Puerto Rico, as far as the eye of the storm, rain and wind impacts, especially flash flooding in Puerto Rico and parts of the Virgin Islands, we can look for that today. Again, blistering pace. We've had a very busy hurricane season so far. We're likely going to see the ice storm today for the first time ever in July. This has to do with the warm sea surface temperatures in the Atlantic and the colder than normal sea surface temperatures in the equatorial Pacific, which creates good environment for tropical development in the Atlantic. This is Hurricane Hal in Galveston. I'm going to give you a shot here of the sun, the beautiful sunrise over the Gulf, and please keep interacting with me. If you have questions about this storm or any future storms, give me a shout out on Facebook, on Twitter, on LinkedIn, and I'd love to address your questions and have a very interactive time with you to talk about the tropical weather during this hurricane season. Thanks everybody for tuning in. Hurricane Hal signing off from Galveston Island. Have a safe Wednesday, everybody.